The agency email said, "Mr. Yang, 2 hours, Christmas Eve. Do not be late." Clara read it 3 times in the hospital bathroom, still in her scrubs, still smelling like antiseptic and grief. Her younger sister had just been wheeled into emergency surgery. The bill? 43,001 she did not have. The agency offered 10 times her monthly salary, just to sit across a stranger at a diner and smile. She told herself she wasn't selling anything. Just her time. Just her presence. She arrived at the Snowbell Diner at 8:47 p.m., 13 minutes late, snowflakes melting in her hair, a paper bag of leftover hospital crackers still in her coat pocket. She hadn't eaten since morning. He was already there, booth at the back, eyes like a man who had watched things die. Jiang Dong sat perfectly still, both hands wrapped around a mug he wasn't drinking from, like warmth was something he had to hold but no longer trusted. Clara's knees almost gave out. She had Googled the name. Nothing came up, but standing 20 feet away from him, she understood why. Some men didn't need the internet to be terrifying. She walked to the booth, sat down, didn't say her name. He already knew it. "You're late," he said. "My sister is in surgery," she replied, not as an excuse, just a fact. Something flickered in his jaw, gone before she could name it. The waitress came. Clara ordered hot chocolate she couldn't afford to want. He ordered nothing. The radio played Silent Night. The snow pressed against the windows like it was listening. And then, without warning, the most powerful man she had ever seen began to cry. He didn't sob. He didn't shake. A single tear. That was all, tracing a slow, silent line down the sharp angle of his cheek. He turned sharply toward the window, a reflex, pure shame, as if he could pull it back into himself if he moved fast enough. Clara should have looked away. Every survival instinct screamed, "Look away, smile, get paid, go home." She leaned forward instead. "Don't cry," her voice barely above the choir on the radio. "It's okay. You can borrow me as your girlfriend tonight." Silence. His head turned back, slowly. Those black, ancient eyes locked onto hers with the full, terrifying weight of a man who destroyed people for disrupting his control. She didn't flinch. "I'm not a charity case," he said, ice in every syllable. "No," she said, "you're a person, on Christmas Eve, alone." A pause. "So am I." He reached inside his jacket and slid a thick envelope across the table. Triple the agreed rate. His default move. Money silenced everything in his world. Clara looked at it, then looked at him. She pushed it back. "I'm not for sale, and neither is my kindness." The silence that followed was the loudest thing either of them had ever heard. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced down. Something shifted, every molecule of warmth evacuating his body instantly. "Get up," he said quietly. "Right now. Don't look at the door." Clara's blood turned to ice. "Why?" "Because the 2 men who just walked in were sent here to kill me." He stood, placing his body between her and the entrance. "And they've already seen your face." It lasted 3 seconds. Clara counted later, replaying it in the silent black car gliding through snow-blurred streets. 3 seconds from the moment the first man reached inside his coat to the moment both men lay crumpled on the diner floor like something had simply switched them off. Jiang Dong hadn't raised his voice, hadn't raised a sweat. He turned back to her, adjusted his sleeve, and said, "Walk." She walked. In the car, she shook so hard her teeth chattered. He shrugged off his coat without a word and laid it over her shoulders. It was impossibly warm. It smelled like cedar and cold night air. It felt insanely, infuriatingly, like safety. "Who were they?" she finally asked. "A message from someone who wants my territory." "And me? What am I now?" He was quiet a long moment. "Visible, which means You're in danger. Take me back to the hospital. My sister is already being guarded by 2 of my men." He said it like it was nothing, like deploying bodyguards was the same as ordering takeout. "She won't be touched." Clara stared at him. "You did that already? We've known each other 40 minutes. His jaw tightened. "You pushed my money back. Eyes still on the road. No one has ever done that." The city lights bled through the windshield. Silent night still, played somewhere in Clara's memory. She understood then. He didn't know what to do with someone who wanted nothing from him. She was the first person in years who had simply seen him. Not his power, not his threat. Him, a man crying alone on Christmas Eve. And it had terrified him more than any rival ever could. His apartment was a monument to loneliness, vast, expensive, silent, designed to impress, not to comfort. He set water to boil, pulled out 2 mugs. Those hands that had just broken a man's wrist, moved through the small domestic ritual with a precision that felt almost heartbreaking. "You don't have to stay," he said. "Where would I go? You said my apartment is compromised." He set the mug in front of her. Then, without sitting, he spoke. "Silent Night was the last song my mother sang to me. I was 9. She died the next morning." A pause. "Christmas Eve is the one night I can't turn it off." Clara wrapped both hands around her mug. "My sister got hurt because of me," she said quietly. "My mistake. Wrong place, wrong time. I've been carrying that alone for 6 months." The silence between them changed. No longer a wall, a bridge. "I'll cover her hospital bill," he said. "Don't." Firm. "Not like that." He looked genuinely confused, like she was a problem he couldn't classify. "Then what do you want from me?" She met his eyes, those ancient, terrible eyes. "Nothing," she said. "I just thought you should know someone sees you. Not the mafia boss. You." She stood. That's all it ever was. He stood very still. In 10 years of absolute power, no weapon had ever landed like that. 3 weeks later, Clara's sister woke from her coma. The first thing she said, before she even said Clara's name, was, "The man who visited every day? Who is he?" Clara froze. "What man?" "Tall, dark suit, never spoke. He just sat in the chair by the window for an hour each day and left." Her sister's voice was weak but certain. "He brought flowers once, left before the nurse saw him." Clara's phone buzzed that night. Unknown number. One message. "She's strong. She'll recover fully." Clara stared at the screen for a long time. She typed back, "You visited her every day and never told me." His reply came instantly. 4 words. "You would have refused." She laughed. Actually laughed for the first time in months. Then she cried. Then she sat on her kitchen floor, trying to understand how the most dangerous man in Seoul had become the only person quietly taking care of everyone she loved. She typed, "Why?" His answer took 3 minutes. She could picture him, still controlled, staring at his phone in that vast, empty apartment, searching for words in a language he barely spoke. Finally, "You borrowed me that night. I was just returning the favor." Clara pressed the phone against her chest. She called him. He picked up on the first ring. Neither of them spoke for 10 full seconds. "Merry late Christmas," she finally said. A pause. Then low and genuine, a word landing like a door opening somewhere deep in his chest. "Yes." The rival organization made their second move in February. They didn't go after Jiang Dong. They went after Clara. She was walking home from the hospital at 11 p.m. when a black van slowed beside her. The door slid open. A hand reached out, and Jiang Dong stepped from the shadows. He had been following her for 3 weeks, not surveilling, not controlling, simply watching over something precious he didn't yet have the courage to name. He said 3 sentences to the men in the van, quiet, in Korean. They drove away. Clara never knew what he said. She could read it in how they left, not in retreat, but in the cold recognition that they had made a catastrophic mistake. They stood on the empty street in the February cold. "You've been watching over me," she said. Not a question. "Yes." "Every day?" "Yes." She turned to face him fully, the man who wept over a carol, who visited her sleeping sister with flowers and never claimed credit, who pushed money across tables to end feelings he didn't know how to hold. "You're terrible at accepting kindness," she said. "I know. But you're trying anyway." He looked at her, and for the first time, he didn't look ancient. He looked exhausted, like a man who had been fighting so long, he forgot there was a world outside the war. "I don't know how to do this," he said. "Any of this." She reached out, took his hand. His fingers, cold, still controlled, didn't pull away. "Neither do I," she said. "So we'll figure it out." The snow started again, soft, gentle, like a beginning. 3 months into their fragile, unnamed thing. Not a relationship, not quite friendship, something that lived in the space between phone calls and shared silences. Clara found the file. She wasn't snooping. Jang Dong had asked her to wait in his study while he took a call. She sat. She noticed a folder on the desk, half open, with her sister's name on the tab. Her hand moved before her brain could stop it. Inside was everything. Medical records going back 8 months, surgeons' reports, a private specialist flown in from Tokyo, bills paid in full, anonymously, physical therapy schedules, a nutritionist on retainer, and at the very back, a single handwritten note in Yang Dong's writing dated the night of their blind date. "Make sure she doesn't lose the sister. Clara has already lost too much." The night of their blind date. He hadn't even known Clara for 3 hours. She was still holding the note when he walked back in. He saw her face. He saw the file. He went absolutely still. The stillness of a man who has been caught doing something he cannot explain away with logic or money. "You decided this the same night we met," she whispered. He said nothing. "Before I pushed the envelope back, before I said anything real to you." Her voice broke on the last word. "Why?" A long silence. His jaw worked. Then, "Because you walked into that diner looking like someone who had been holding the world up alone for so long that her knees were about to give out." He paused. "And nobody was helping you hold it." Clara pressed her hand over her mouth. "I know what that looks like," he said very quietly. "I grew up watching my mother stand exactly the same way." The room tilted. She crossed the space between them and did the one thing that broke every remaining wall between them. She hugged him, not a dramatic embrace, just her forehead against his chest, her arms around him, small, exhausted, real. He stood frozen for 3 full seconds. A man who hadn't been held since he was 9 years old, and the world still made sense. And then, slowly, like someone remembering a language they thought they'd lost forever, his arms came up around her. Outside, Seoul roared on. Inside, something that had been broken for a very long time began, quietly, to mend. They didn't get long. They never do in stories like this. The rival organization, the one Jang Dong had declared neutralized in February, had not been neutralized. They had been regrouping, watching, learning the one thing about Jang Dong that had never been true before. He had something to lose. It was his lieutenant, Seo, who delivered the intelligence on a gray Tuesday morning. Clara's full profile, her hospital, her sister's rehab center, her new apartment, her community college schedule, down to the exact time she left for class every Tuesday and Thursday. Someone on the inside had been feeding information for months. Zhang Dong read the report once, set it down. His face revealed nothing. "How long have you known?" he asked Seo. 48 hours. I wanted to be certain before. Get her, now." But Clara was already gone. She had left for class 20 minutes earlier, and her phone was going straight to voicemail. What followed were the longest 40 minutes of Zhang Dong's life, and he had lived through things that should have killed him 4 times over. His vehicles fanned across the city. Traffic cameras pulled, every contact activated. He drove himself, which he never did, because his hands needed to be doing something, or he would come apart at the seams in a way that no one in his organization could ever witness. He found her on the steps of the community college, confused, unharmed, phone dead from a cracked charging port. He pulled up, got out, walked to her. She looked at his face, the gray, stripped-bare terror of it, and understood immediately. "It happened again," she said. "Yes, I'm okay. I can see that." His voice was completely flat, the voice of a man furious at his own relief. "Get in the car." She got in the car. They drove in silence for 10 minutes. Then Clara said very carefully, "Zhang Dong, how long can we live like this?" He didn't answer, because the answer was the thing he had been refusing to look at directly for months. Like staring into a light so bright it would blind him. He couldn't keep her safe and keep her, not in his world, not permanently. Every day she stayed close to him was a day she was painted as a target by every enemy he had ever made, every rival still circling, every ghost of a past that would never fully die. The choice that had been building since Christmas Eve was finally standing directly in front of him, and it was the cruelest thing he had ever faced. He came to her apartment on a Sunday. That alone told her something was wrong. He never came on Sundays. Sundays were the days he let her have her life back, a small mercy in the shape of a day. He sat across from her at her small kitchen table, both hands wrapped around a mug of tea he wasn't drinking. Clara looked at him. Her chest tightened. "Don't," she said before he could speak. "Clara, don't you dare sit in my kitchen holding a mug exactly the way you did in that diner and tell me this is over." His jaw tightened. 3 attempts in 5 months. The next one won't stop at a van and a warning. They'll go after your sister, the rehab center, the hospital where you work. He set the mug down. "I cannot protect everyone you love indefinitely and conduct a war at the same time. Something will slip. Then let me help. You are not a weapon." His voice cracked on the last word, the first time she had ever heard it crack. "That is not what I want you to be." Silence. "What do you want me to be?" she whispered. He looked at her, and the answer was written across every part of his face, in a language he had no words for, and she could read perfectly. "Safe," his eyes said. "Happy. Whole. Everything I cannot give you while I'm standing next to you." "There's a house," he said quietly. "Outside the city. New name, new documents, completely clean. Your sister goes with you. Her therapy transfers to a facility 20 minutes away, already arranged. Your college credits transfer. No one from my world knows it exists." Clara stared at him. "You built us an escape route." "Yes." "How long ago?" A pause. "February." The same month he had stepped from the shadows to stop the van. He had been planning her exit and protecting her at the same time. Both, simultaneously, because he had known this moment was coming and had refused to choose which was more important. And so he had done both, quietly, in the dark, without telling her. Clara stood up from the table. She walked to him, crouched in front of his chair, so she was looking up at him, forcing him to look down at her, to see her clearly. "What about you?" she asked. "I'll finish what I started, dismantle the organization that keeps coming for us. It'll take time." "How long?" "I don't know." And when it's done, he held her gaze. I'll find you. Promise me. Her voice was barely a sound. Not as a transaction, not as a debt repaid. You promise me, as the man who cried over Silent Night and visited my sister when he thought no one was watching. That man promises me. Something moved through him, seismic, slow, irreversible. I promise, he said. She reached up and pressed her palm flat against his chest, right over his heart, the way you check if something is still beating. It was. She nodded. She stood up. She started packing. He sat at her table until she was done, drinking the tea that had gone cold, watching her move through her apartment with the quiet efficiency of someone who has learned to hold love and loss in the same hand without dropping either. At the door, she stopped. Jiangdong. He looked at her. Don't take too long. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. She could see it in the way he looked at her, the way a man looks at the only horizon worth walking toward. She left. He sat alone in her empty apartment for a long time after, in the silence she'd left behind, which smelled like lemon polish and something warm and irreplaceable. Then he stood up, straightened his jacket, walked to the door. He had a war to end.